Hi, I'm Dominic Levin, and I'll be talking about environmental toxins in Inuit communities. The Inuit have traditionally relied on local wildlife as an important food source, but it has become a concern as in some cases it has had a negative impact on their health. Their traditional food sources, such as whales, seals, polar bears, birds, and fish, are linked to the Inuits' increasing levels of heavy metals that are mainly attributed to their diet and consumption of marine mammals, which bioaccumulate these toxins. Marine mammals are a large part of the traditional Inuit food source, and these mammals have been observed to have a high level of lead and methyl mercury in their body. Carnitine palmitoyl transferase 1 is a key hepatic lipid oxidation enzyme found in high rates in Inuit communities. A primary route of exposure to toxins is the gastrointestinal tract. As most toxins cross the membrane and pass into the bloodstream, indigenous peoples living in the north base their diet on traditional food sources such as marine and land animals, therefore making them at risk for environmental chemicals. Mercury and lead are fat soluble toxins, and even though they dissolve slightly in water when they come into contact with aquatic organisms, through gills of fish, for example, they immediately dissolve in the fat of the fish. Bioaccumulation then occurs as the organism comes into contact with more and more water, and toxins accumulate in the organism. As the organisms feed on each other and move up the food chain, are the fats move up as well, and toxins find their way into the fats of new organisms. When this process is repeated, the effect is magnified. This is referred to as biomagnification. These chemicals have been directly related to cardiovascular diseases and developmental issues, as well as they produce fatty acids that increase levels of obesity in Inuit individuals. These chemicals have a long life in the atmosphere and affect individuals who can't see it in their own environment, but when studies are done, these negative health effects can be observed. Lead is a neurotoxin, and when ingested by humans or animals, it damages the nervous system and causes neurological disorders. Lead accumulates in both soft tissue and bones, causing individual body burns to exceed healthy levels when exposed. Much of its toxicity comes from how lead ions are confused for calcium ions, and lead, as a result, gets into the bones. Lead is a neurotoxin that can be directly related to reaction time in individuals. Children's reaction time can be directly related, and as studies have shown, the developmental issues with children's movement caused by increased levels of lead. Lead levels can affect the production of hemoglobin in humans, which is essential for healthy development. Inuit children who have higher levels of lead in their blood were found to have a wider sway velocity when studies are done compared to healthy children. Sway velocity is the ability to control small movements such as tremors and speed of clicking a button that was used in some of these studies. Children who had elevated levels of lead in their blood had re- trouble repeatedly answering questions in close succession, showing that these increased levels were directly related to decreased development. Lead was not studied in Inuit children due to the lack of evidence of high levels of lead in their environment. Now that elevated levels of lead in Inuit children's blood has been studied and directly related to increased rates of children with developmental issues with their movement. Lead can be removed by EDTA ion that ties up the lead ions. The reaction is here where the calcium ion is separated and the lead ion it goes with ETDA. Heavy metals interfere with various enzymes. An example is sulfur that is present in most enzymes as a sulfur-hydryl group. Heavy metals often tie up these two groups by attaching themselves to the sulfur atom. Here you can see when sulfur is attached to this atom, it becomes an inactive enzyme. The above reaction demonstrates that it is the metal ion of mercury that causes the problem. It is important to note the damage done is irreversible. Methylmercury is the most toxic form of mercury and has been observed in growing amounts in marine mammals. Mercury is a toxic heavy metal that has an affinity to form bonds with sulfur ions, including a group of amino acids. So once methylmercury enters the body, it can form bonds with proteins containing amino acids. Mercury is a toxic heavy metal, although most of it is inorganic or elemental. Once it in the water, it can be transformed into methylmercury by microbial action. Methylmercury is recognized as an important developmental neurotoxin. Methylmercury enters the body and forms bonds with proteins. It mimics a natural protein and can spread throughout the body and is not eliminated from the body. The Inuits in Nunavik in Arctic Quebec are among the most heavily exposed populations on Earth to PCBs and methylmercury because of the long-range transport of these chemicals via atmospheric and ocean currents, and the bioaccumulation in sea mammals, as these are staples of the traditional Inuit diet. Inuit populations consume different species of fish, and in some cases, marine mammals, and their risk of cardiovascular effects may be related not only to methylmercury exposure, but also to nutrients that may counteract the toxic effects of methylmercury, such as omega-3 polyunsaturated fatty acids and psyllium, that are high in some marine foods. Methylmercury exposure has been linked to an increased risk of coronary heart disease. It is a neurotoxin as well as having connections to cardiovascular diseases, and rates of these diseases have increased in these communities. Levels of mercury have been found in the blood of Inuit communities that exceed the healthy levels for this chemical. High rates of mercury and methylmercury in the blood can cause mercury poisoning, which damages the brain, kidney, and lungs. Here you can see that the total mercury is higher as you get older because it accumulates inside of people. Inuit children born from mothers who consume large amounts of marine mammals during pregnancy can pass on the body burden to their children. These mothers who consume large amounts of marine animals that contain high levels of mercury during their pregnancy have shown higher rates of children being born with both physical and mental disabilities. Here you can see that mercury is taken in mostly by the Inuits and in very high quantities. Carnitine palmitoyltransferase is a key hepatic lipid oxidation enzyme in humans. It can be associated with obesity. Inuit individuals have much higher rates than what is expected in a healthy human. CPT1A is regulated by diet and has been seen in Inuit cases where blood clots and other diseases are more prevalent. CPT1A's role in the metabolism of fatty acids makes an important factor in metabolic disorders. Many mutated forms of CPT-A have been connected to carnitine palmitoyltransferase deficiency. In many cases, this causes amino acids to be blocked from entering areas of the body. As a result of this, fatty acids cannot enter certain cells, which causes them to not produce energy. Reduced energy production can cause low blood sugar and low levels of production from the breakdown of fat. Fatty acids may also build up in cells and damage the liver, heart, and brain. CPT1A can be directly related with obesity and is seen in Inuit case studies where blood clots and other metabolic diseases such as diabetes are more prevalent in these communities. Blood clots are caused by CPT1A because it increases the production of plasma inside of the bloodstream, creating thicker blood inside these individuals. These individuals have a high body burden of CPT1A, and this mimics body functions that cause Inuit people to increase their obesity. Red blood cells are affected, causing individuals to have high blood pressure as well as other cardiac diseases. CPT1A is a major contributor to diabetes as it produces fatty acidic chemicals that are stored inside organisms. It can, as with many chemicals, CPT1A can have much more drastic effects on children and has been related to case studies of sudden infant death syndrome. Autopsy findings of infant Inuits have included fatty infiltrates into the liver and, in one case, into the right ventricle. These highlight the ongoing concerns related to environmental toxins in relation to the Inuit and their traditional food source and promotes further study on these topics. Thank you.